KHTK AM and HD1 Sacramento, KYMX HD2 Sacramento. From the Power Business Technology Toshiba Studios, Sactown Sports 1140, the flagship station of your Sacramento Kings. It's time for Kings Weekly.
He's got the bucket!
Recapping the week that was, previewing what's ahead, and looking at the biggest stories surrounding the team. It's Kings Weekly. Here's your host, Chris Watkins.
Yet another week has gone by in Kings basketball. My name is Chris Watkins, host for the next half hour of Kings Weekly. There's Sacramento Kings basketball today. They tip off in Los Angeles at the Crypt at Crypto.com Arena, the worst named arena in the NBA, maybe in the entire world. That's extra bad. That tips off at 1 o'clock right here on Sactown Sports 1140. I will be doing the pre-halftime and post-game, so I'll be doing this show and then taking a nice little hour break as Henry Turner and Scott Marsh do game night, and then I'll be right back on your airwaves starting at 12:30. Again, 1 o'clock tip-off. Shout out everyone today who got up at 7 a.m. like myself to watch the USA-Netherlands World Cup match. Unfortunately, did not go the U.S.'s way, lost 3-1. Made it interesting for about 5 minutes, and then the Dutch put it away. So I've been up for a while. I'm ready for this show. We only have a half hour, so without further ado, let's just get into it. The Kings went 1-1 on the week. I believe I was right again, if I'm not mistaken, on my prediction for the week. Loss at the hands of the Phoenix Suns on Monday, 122-117. Devin Booker went crazy, y'all. He went absolutely bonkers. 44 points against the Sacramento Kings. That would begin a 3-game stretch for Devin Booker that has seen him score over 40 points in his last 3 games. He is on an absolute tear right now. So you really can't blame the Kings too much for allowing Booker to do what he did because he's just on a different level right now. That guy is going insane. Big ups Devin Booker, who is having an absolute breakout season after another breakout season the year before, after another breakout season this season before that. As I mentioned, Kings 1-1 on the week, 11-9 on the season. They're sitting at the 7th seed right now in the Western Conference. If they pick up the win today against the Clippers, we don't know if Kawhi or Paul George is playing. If they can pick up that win, they would then leapfrog the Clippers into the 5 seed. It might be a little early to be counting, or to be, doing the standings race, but I'm going to keep you updated on a weekly basis. So we know where we stand, in here in Kingsland. Without further ado, let's get into, I was talking at the prediction portion that we do, the look ahead portion that we do at the last segment of every week's show. It was all about the Pacers. The game of the week was the Pacers. The match of the week was Fox against Halliburton. Everything was about that Pacer game, and it did not disappoint from a Sacramento Kings perspective. But before we get into the actual game itself, here's Tyrese Halliburton, former Sacramento Kings point guard, talking about his reception back in Sacramento.
It meant a lot. I've said multiple times what this place means to me, what these people mean to me. You see, there's a lot of people here in my jersey, a lot of people showing my pops love and my mom love and my girl love, throughout the day, all around town. So means a lot, man. Means a lot.
It was an absolutely fantastic reception for Tyrese Halliburton. He got cheered, standing ovation when they announced him in the starting lineup. I think a lot of Sacramento Kings fans love Tyrese, his time here in Sacramento. They even love him now in Indiana. I think a lot of people still have a lot of bitter feelings about how that trade went down. I think a lot of people would have preferred to see De'Aaron Fox moved in that trade as opposed to Tyrese Halliburton, including Tyrese Halliburton himself, who has said on many occasions that he was expecting to be a King for a while. I don't think he ever said King for life, but he had no intention of leaving this team, and he wanted to make his imprint on this team and just didn't get his chance because he was moved a year and a half into his Kings stay. And, he really has taken it personally, I think, from, or at least in the beginning emotions of after the deal. You heard him say, he was expecting to be a king for a while and wanted to be a king for a while, and the Kings just must have not wanted him. And I think that's the furthest thing from the truth. I think if anything, it's a huge compliment. And it's hard to tell Tyrese Halliburton doesn't want to hear, oh, it's actually a compliment that you had to uproot your life and move to Indiana. But it really was. He and Buddy Hield were able to get a 2-time All-Star, Domantas Sabonis, in return. And that's, that normally, without having to give up any draft picks, that's a huge compliment and a testament to Tyrese's value at that time. And I think even now his value is even higher as he's performed so well in Indiana. I was listening to the Locked On Pacers podcast, which is a daily Pacers podcast. There's Locked On Kings, hosted by my guy, Matt George. Matt will join us eventually one week, host of Locked On Kings. But I was listening to Locked On Pacers after that game on Wednesday, and they put it perfectly. I think the host said he saw it on Twitter, but this is just an absolutely perfect analogy for the trade. So there's a farmer, and this farmer has a Ferrari. Okay. Farmer doesn't have much use for a Ferrari. So he trades the Ferrari for the world's best tractor. Now, the person who got the Ferrari for the tractor, everyone's going to look at that and say, you got a Ferrari. You got look at you down the freeway going 120 miles an hour. That's dope. You got it for a tractor, which is, if you're driving a tractor down the freeway, you're getting looks, not the looks you're getting from a Ferrari. But it's what the farmer needs. For the farmer, that world's best tractor is invaluable. And I think the Pacers are totally, completely comfortable with their side of the deal. They got the Ferrari. They're looking flashy. People are talking about, oh, look at that Ferrari over there. Now I'm just gonna mix the analogy up, but it's both teams got what they needed out of the deal, and I think both teams are incredibly excited about what they got from it and how they're going to move forward with that decision. But it wasn't all welcome. Tyrese got the standing ovation. It was not the same treatment for Buddy Hield, and I'm trying to figure out how that happened. I don't quite understand. I really don't. If you could join us on the YouTube stream right now at youtube.com/Sactown Sports 1140, please put in there if you have a reason. If you were one of the people who booed Buddy Hield, I legitimately just want to know why. I just don't understand. It's not the Marvin Bagley situation where Marvin Bagley's father has came out on countless occasions and bashed the city of Sacramento, bashed the Kings organization. Marvin's agent released a note at the beginning of last season saying it's malpractice and shows the incompetence of the Kings that they don't start his client, Marvin Bagley. That makes sense to me. I can understand, it's not Marvin's direct fault, but the situation around Marvin caused him to get booed every time he touched the ball. Spencer Hawes, who some of you might not know, but I feel like a lot of diehard Kings fans absolutely know Spencer Hawes, wore a Seattle Supersonics hat while in the middle of the Kings relocation saga. That deserves to get booed, and he does get booed too. If Spencer Hawes were to walk into any Sacramento Kings, fandom area, he's getting booed, possibly getting beer thrown at him. It all makes sense. I'm not gonna say he deserves it, but I'm not gonna say anything. It just doesn't make sense to me. Buddy Hield, from what I understand, I've asked a couple people, he didn't want to be here. I don't think he ever publicly said he was demanding a trade, but for sure. I mean, I'm around the team. I hear things. I see things. I understand that, at times Buddy Hield definitely effort was lacking, especially on the defensive end, but I just think that's kind of who Buddy is. But for the most part, what I got was, yeah, he just didn't want to be here. To me, that's not grounds to boo him every single time he touches the ball. And it definitely affected him at first. Missed his first 3 shots, had an ugly turnover. We saw a similar thing with Marvin where he came out. I think the adrenaline's a lot when you have 16, 17,000 people booing you specifically every time you touch the ball. It's going to amp you up a little bit. It's hard to kind of compose yourself in the moment. But, Buddy settled in. He finished off with 17 points, 3 of 8 from 3, and had a decent game. He was the team's 3rd highest scorer on the night. And it's funny because Tyrese, who had the warm welcome, no boos, nothing like that, really had an incredibly, no pun intended, but also pun intended, had an off night. Davion Mitchell was in his grill all night. We saw Tyrese pick up a tech because he was frustrated with the amount of pressure Davion was putting on him. Tyrese really struggled. He had 9 points, finished with 9 points, did get 10 assists. He's leading the NBA in double doubles and in assists. So that's no surprise that he was able to get to that 10 assist mark. 4 of 13 from the field, 1 of 6 from 3. He was clearly just not himself that night. And we've seen, the Tyrese Halliburton I remember in Sacramento was a 13.8 assist kind of guy. He's not naturally a guy who's looking for his shot. He's not looking to get 20, 25, 30 points on a given night. I think with this situation that he's in Indiana, it's forced him to be more of a shooter just because of their lack of talent. I mean, Tyrese doesn't have many great options to go to. And so he's, it's been good for his game. But an off night for Tyrese, had 2 turnovers, which is huge because going into that game, he was on an incredible streak of 40 consecutive assists without a turnover in 3 consecutive. I think it was either 3 or 4 games in a row where he had stacked those numbers up. So for the Kings to not only force him into 1 turnover, but to 2, to me really speaks of how the Kings were able to slow him down on that night and get the win. It was a really big win. It was a great team win. 7 players finished in double figures for Sacramento. Possibly their best defensive performance of the year. They clearly had Indiana shook. Definitely could not. Indiana didn't really get into any form of rhythm at all. I think the closest they made it in that second half was 14 points on a nice little run, and then Sacramento responded immediately, extending the lead, and then really it was no contest throughout that fourth quarter. So nice to get one of those nice, comfortable wins. Not everything has to be a nail biter that gets decided down the stretch. Good for the Kings to have a couple days off here to kind of rejuvenate themselves. De'Aaron Fox hasn't looked quite the same his past few games, so it was good to see him get some rest. He's averaged under 30 minutes for his past 3-4 games. So, it's good. This is good. We're coming up on another. Hey, guess what? The Kings have another tough stretch of basketball coming up here that we're going to preview on the other side of this break. Kings need rest. Kings need to pick up wins. They need to be at their best as they head on a tough 6-game road streak ahead. We'll talk about that more on the other side of the break. You are listening to Kings Weekly right here on Sactown Sports 1140. Join us on the YouTube page at youtube.com/Sactown Sports 1140. We're going to look ahead to the next week of Kings basketball. This is Kings Weekly, Sactown Sports 1140.
It's Kings Weekly with Chris Watkins.
Hey, it's Carmichael Dave. Look, a holiday magic trick every year. Amy's Outdoor Living makes an incredible metamorphosis into Sacramento's finest holiday store. See dozens of beautifully decorated themed Christmas trees, find hundreds of unique ornaments perfect for any tree, plus sensational gifts for everyone on your list. Is there a better gift than a Traeger pellet grill? No. Specially priced for the holidays. Save $400 off the Timberline $850 and $1350, $200 off the Pro 575. Oh, my goodness gracious. Get $2 off all rub sauces and seasonings and pellets. Fire pits make a wonderful gift. It'll be where the family gets together to enjoy all that Christmas cheer. Experience the magic of the holidays at Amy's Outdoor Living. Now 2 locations. El Camino near Watt and Carmichael. That's the one I grew up going to with my dad. And inside Amy Ace Hardware in El Dorado Hills Town Center. Get up there today. Enjoy the holidays. Make everybody happy. And support your good local businesses like Amy Ace Hardware.
Kings Weekly with Chris Watkins on Sactown Sports.
We look ahead to the next week of Kings basketball. As I mentioned on the just a little bit ago, tough stretch ahead for the Sacramento Kings. Nothing new. They've had a tough schedule all year. It does eventually lighten up at the end of this road trip, but they're going to have to get through some tough teams before they do that. They play the Clippers, as we know, later today at Crypto.com Arena. Tip-off at 1 o'clock. Still no word from what I've seen. I haven't been able to check Twitter in the past 15 minutes, but still no word on whether Kawhi or Paul George will be playing today's game. That will obviously have a huge impact on how this game goes. But the Kings could definitely use a little bit of a break today as they're on the first night of a back-to-back, as they're going from LA and then flying back tonight to Sacramento to play the Chicago Bulls tomorrow at 3 o'clock tip-off at Golden One Center. Chicago has not been the team that they were last year at all. They've struggled offensively, struggled defensively. Zach LaVine doesn't look himself. DeMar DeRozan is still just absolutely incredible. He torched the Kings last year. Looking forward to seeing that matchup. That is, again, tomorrow at 3 p.m. Then on Wednesday, the road trip begins. This is, as I mentioned, an incredibly tough road trip, starting with the second best team in the Eastern Conference in the Milwaukee Bucks, who are getting up back to full health. Chris Middleton played his first game of the season last night after missing 7.5 months with a wrist injury, wrist surgery as well. That game is at 5 o'clock on Wednesday. Then on Friday, they play the Cleveland Cavaliers. We know Cleveland. We're familiar with Cleveland. The Kings were able to sneak one away from Cleveland earlier this year. They play them on Friday. They're sitting at 15-8. That game is at 4:30. A lot of early games this week. So hopefully the Kings can adjust to that little bit of an earlier schedule. But without further ado, let's preview things. Let's hit this game of the week.
Here's Kings Weekly's Game of the Week.
It's going to be a tough one. It is going to be a tough one on Wednesday in Milwaukee. One of the better teams in the Eastern Conference and in this league in general. A lot of questions about this game. It's another tough opponent. Kings haven't fared well against the Celtics. I thought, they played well against Phoenix, but really couldn't stop Devin Booker at all. And DeAndre Ayton also had an incredibly efficient night. So they've had a tough time playing against these elite teams. It's always the question. I mean, 28, maybe 20, 25 or so teams are wondering this same question of who guards Giannis Antetokounmpo when we play the Milwaukee Bucks. I don't know. I don't have an answer. Traditionally, the Kings would put Harrison Barnes on him. Size for size, that's not quite the best matchup you want to put on him. Keegan Murray's still a young guy. I don't know if you want to give him that assignment so early in his NBA career. Sabonis doesn't really have the foot speed to keep up with Giannis. Is that maybe a KZ Okpala game? Do we maybe see KZ, especially if, Keegan seemed to get things going in that Indy game, but if Keegan continues to struggle, maybe we see KZ inserted matchup wise for in the starting lineup for that game. I think KZ probably lengthwise gives them the best chance against Giannis, but in all reality, you can't stop the guy. He's called the Greek Freak for a reason. The dude is different. The dude is not your typical person that you have to guard in the league. Not really a skill set that you find around the league many places. As I mentioned, Chris Middleton coming back, that's going to be huge for Milwaukee. He'll have a couple games under his belt. They lost last night to Los Angeles. You'd expect that's just kind of part of them reintegrating themselves. Drew Holiday, Giannis, Middleton. They're the best defense in the league right now, 107.9 defensive rating. That's tops in the league. The Kings' offense hasn't traveled well or didn't travel well in their last road trip. So, going against the best defense, they're absolutely going to have to show up against Milwaukee. Let's move on to storylines.
Here's Kings Weekly's top storyline.
This has been a common theme. Can the Kings keep their heads above 500, especially while on the road? I mentioned that they had the offensive struggles previously on the road in their last road trip. This is not an easy one. Not an easy road trip. They play 5 straight road games against play-in or play-off teams, top 10 seeds in the Eastern Conference. It's Milwaukee on Wednesday, Cleveland on Friday. Then they play the Knicks. Then they play the Philadelphia 76ers, followed by the Toronto Raptors. That is 5 playoff teams that the Kings will have to face in a row. Not going to be easy. All of them on the road. They're 4-5 so far this season on the road, so really haven't shown yet to be an excellent road team, but also have been able to scrape by and get a couple wins. It's not about them getting a winning record on this road trip. It's about them showing up, showing out, making games competitive. They probably should, handle the Knicks. I don't want to get ahead of my predictions, but there's a couple games here where they should be able to potentially pick up and maybe get some wins on a really, really tough road trip where you gotta take what you can get. And if there's any game that's for the taking, the Kings can't have a game like they did in Atlanta, where the game is clearly for the taking, and they just can't pull through. So that's what I'm going to be looking for this week. Also, the Kings are only now, they're I mentioned at the top of the show, they're the 7th seed right now. They could leapfrog to 5 if they win tonight. At this moment, they're only a game and a half away from being the 11 seed. Okay. So if the Kings lose 4 or 5 in a row here, again, there's a lot of basketball to be played. Probably not the right time to be looking at the standings and fixating on where the Kings are falling, but you lose 4 or 5 straight games here and you're falling behind, you're out of the play-in race, and then you're kind of playing that catch-up game that the Kings have been too familiar with in these past couple seasons. Not what you're looking for. So again, the Kings have to pick up some games here. Let's move on to the matchups.
It's Kings Weekly's matchup to watch.
What I have written down here is Domas versus everybody. It's Domas versus the world, the ox, the tractor. Domas has the Kings have a tough stretch. Domas is going to have a rough stretch of games. It's probably not going to be tough for him. He's a very, very strong guy, and never has height been an issue, or has height, really deterred him from having good games. But just to read off against the matchups that Domas is going to have to go against this week. Today at 1:00, he's going against Zubac, who's just a massive load. He's 7 feet, 275. It's a big boy. That's a big boy. Tomorrow, he's got to go against Vucevic, equally large, but also can stretch the floor. That's something Domas hasn't had to do much this season, is guard the perimeter. It's not really his strong suit, but Vucevic is just as lethal from beyond the arc as he is in the paint. That's going to present an interesting matchup for him. Milwaukee, Brook Lopez, a similar kind of player as Vucevic, where he can knock down the three. He can bully you down in the paint. Giannis, will he have to guard Giannis at some point? I mentioned that's going to be a really tough matchup for Domas if he gets switched on to Giannis. Not looking forward to that. And then there's Cleveland.
Cleveland! This is for you!
Yeah, Cleveland might have something for Domas. As I mentioned, the Kings did beat the Cavs earlier this season. Something tells me, you're just not going to be able to sneak by Cleveland twice, a really good Cleveland team this year. And it's going to be tough to pick up 2 wins against them. Domas is going to have to deal again with the size of Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. We saw him. He actually played really well against Cleveland the last time they played. I believe he finished with 17 and 12 in that game. So their height wasn't really that big of an issue for him, as he's just such a bull. He is a man's man, and he is not afraid to get down and dirty in that paint. And a lot of the times these big guys, these big, lengthy, skinny guys like Mobley, like Allen, they don't like that kind of physicality. And even though they're 7'3", 7'2", whatever their height is, they look like they're 8 feet tall. If you hit them in the chest and they kneel down a little, they're going to be like a guard size. So excited to see Domas go against everybody, go against the entire world. I still expect him to put up great numbers, maybe a little bit more assists. Maybe he gets his first triple-double of the season, with him going against such big guys. Maybe that opens up the paint a little bit for everybody else, and maybe he can be more of a distributor than an attacker. But excited to see what Domas has to do against some of the bigger bigs in this league. Let's move on to the predictions.
It's time for Kings Weekly's predictions.
I got them going 2-2 for the week. I've been pretty nails on my predictions so far this season. I feel like I'm hitting my prime in terms of these predictions. I gotta take my luck down to Reno or something. But I'm seeing a win tonight against the Clippers. That might be assuming Paul George and Kawhi don't play. But even if one of them. Well, I'll just give them one. Hopefully both of them don't play. But, Paul George dropped 40 on us last time, and the Clippers were barely able to hold on to beat the Kings. As long as they can contain Paul George, Norm Powell's out tonight. I believe Luke Kennard is also out tonight. So, the Clippers are going to be a little bit shorthanded when it comes to their depth, and they have some of the best depth in this league. I expect the Kings to take care of it tonight. I also expect them, on a rare occasion here, to win both of the games on this back-to-back. I expect them to beat Chicago. Chicago, as I mentioned, has been down this year. They're 9-13, lost last night. Chicago's lost 3 of their last 4. They're not playing well. That's going to be the Kings' last home game for about a week and a half. So, it's always nice to kind of leave your building with a little bit of good momentum and good feelings. And then, the games against Milwaukee and Cleveland, those are just going to be too tough. I mentioned how the Kings have already beaten the Cavs earlier this season. It's going to be tough to try and sweep them on the year. But I just want to see a level of compete in those 2 games. Those are 2 of the better teams in the Eastern Conference, 2 of the longer, bigger teams in the Eastern Conference, in the league, really. The Kings are going to struggle with that, I think, a lot. But it's just kind of, figuring things out. You got to figure out how to maybe they can sneak one out in one of those games, but you got to figure out how to compete against the better teams in this league. Good teams beat good teams, as De'Aaron Fox said earlier this season. So, you can't count them out of every game. Voice crack to end the show. Can't count them out of every game just because they're supposed to lose. That's going to do it for today. As I mentioned, short show because of Kings basketball at 1:00. Coming up, we have game night with Scott Marsh and Henry Turner. Then I will be right back here in this seat at 12:30 for Kings pregame. You'll hear me in the halftime as well, and with the postgame with Henry Turner. Looking forward to doing that. Don't go anywhere. Kings, Clippers today. You have been listening to Kings Weekly with Chris Watkins for Kyle Ledbetter. Thank you so much for listening. Bye-bye. See you in an hour.
Kings Weekly with Chris Watkins on Sactown Sports.
The Kings won, yeah. Oh.
Your local utilities are offering up to $11,000 in rebates to make energy-saving home improvement